Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Winter, back with another game of WinterStarcast. This time, we've got two players based out of North America here in a Terran versus Zerg on Frozen Temple. Just kicking it off, we have my favorite player now currently living in America. Where's my music? I love the Terran music. The Terran music is so good. There we go. Alright, back to it. Production quality. But we have Polt. His opponent from Team Root, another top Grandmaster WCS player. It is Jimrising. Alright, just starting off, we see Polt going for the pretty customary Reaper expand, adding on a Marine behind. And he'll probably be adding on his factory, and then a reactor after this Marine. Everything times out nice, and you can maybe pick off an Overlord if you're in the right place at the right time. And just have basic early defense against Zerglings. We see the Reaper coming out. He will scout that Jimrising, not going for any sneaky early pull shenanigans. He might even be able to pick off one of these drones here. Every drone pick off this early on is really nice. As we see Polt body blocking that drone all the way to its death. Alright. Coming back around for another pass. He pretty much assumes that Jimrising's probably going for Zergling speed and stuff like that. He wants to get as much damage done with this Reaper as possible. And some pretty beautiful micro done so far from Polt. Alright. We see the first Overlord has a positive scout on the factory. He knows the direction Polt is more than likely going. He didn't see for sure that there's going to be a reactor over here, but he can assume it. What he doesn't know right now is whether there's going to be tank drop or there's going to be reactor Hellions. These are the two really early choices you'll see the vast majority of players making. Tank drop has become a lot more popular, especially on the new maps. Just having that siege tank with the medevac option for mobility, just for early defense against things like Ravager all-ins, Roach pushes, maybe even like Zergling drop or something like that. Overall, the tank is usually a better option. Reaper getting gunned down. He overstayed his welcome a little bit. And he will pay for it. But now we see the Overlord coming in, will scout. We've got reactored Hellions, a Liberator going to be coming out as well. And the first Hellions and Reapers, we'll have to see how many Hellions he chooses to make. Because if he goes too far into Hellions, he'll delay any other potential mid-game tech, like those siege tanks. But if he knows he's just going up against Zerglings, you can afford to make Hellions for a pretty long while, actually. Alright, we see that third base quite literally under fire. He's not really expecting to take this out, but he wants to force the Queens potentially off of this creep, maybe get a few Zerglings, and just do what damage he can. Maybe that damage comes and helps him pick this off with a drop later on. That's pretty important. Let's ruin your immersion for a second, as everything's so loud. I didn't notice how loud Hellions were until this moment. Alright. More Hellions are coming up. And doing actually a lot of damage to this hatchery. At first I thought no chance he takes this out, but right now, there isn't that much to deflect this. He shouldn't be able to finish it off. The creep will allow these Queens to get in position, but that's a lot of Hellions now. He's doing more damage. And he's actually bringing it pretty deep into the red. The Roaches are finally finishing up. A Transfuse will be used. He will target down possibly one of these Queens as the Roaches come out, and he will commit, which means he loses another couple Hellions for his trouble. Some Zerglings came across the map to maybe pick off some additional Hellions on their way across. But he won't be able to get anything for his trouble there. Hellions going to take control of the Watchtower, which will give him vision of this middle path here. Nothing can really get by without passing by that Watchtower's vision. Pretty important. The Liberator sneaking its way up, but an Overlord is in position. Polt using that attack command, knowing once the Liberator is spotted, it's unlikely to get that much damage done. So might as well pick off these Overlords, even if the Liberators take their time doing it against these armored units that Overlords are. We see the Hellions coming in, sacrificing themselves, essentially outliving their usefulness here, just trying to get some damage done, but Jimrising will respond accordingly. Already has the Roaches in position with the Zerglings, and now he's doing something you don't see that often nowadays in ZVT. He's actually adding on a Spire. Usually, you'll see Roaches and Ravagers, you're going for your +1/+1 upgrades, maybe you end up with Burrow Move or something like that. especially on a wide open map like this. What you don't see that often is the Spire, and now Polt isn't anticipating this either. As we see him sending out a drop against someone who's going for roaches, against someone who's going to have minimal anti-air, this drop makes a lot of sense. Getting another tank, just continually producing tanks, that makes a lot of sense, because the big threats are usually going to be your Roach Ravager pushes, especially when that Roach speed finishes up. But we see Polt with the 0 turrets. He is now producing these additional barracks, but he only has 5-6 Marines at home. He's got the drop coming in, the Liberator trying to find some damage. The Scout here, yeah, Polt doesn't actually know. He's what looks like making the assumption that his opponent is going for that Roach Ravager composition. So Jimrising going to be able to pull one over on him. Now Polt able to clear up this creep. Jimrising doesn't want to commit too hard. Okay, now he's got the mutas. He can take out this Liberator. Will the Overlord go down? Yes, it will. And that will supply block Jimrising with no Overlords in production. So small victory there, but Polt forced to scramble a little bit, throwing up these turrets as soon as he scouts the mutas. Imagine if those mutas hadn't decided to kill the Liberator and come straight across the map. Now, Jimrising doesn't know that Polt didn't throw up his safety turrets. He's making 7 Overlords at a time to alleviate that supply block now. But Polt gets away with a little bit here because he was not prepared for those mutas. Now you see him responding pretty strongly. We've got 2 Liberators on the way. It looks like Jimrising committing to that Mutaling Baneling composition. Once again, not that common. And he's got Baneling speed on the way. He's got his 1-1 upgrades, and he's got a 4th base. So what we're looking at right now is that classic split of mid-game 3-base Terran against Mutaling Baneling 4-base Zerg. And now the fight will be for Polt to find a timing before Hive Tech kicks in. Now, if Jimrising doesn't go to Hive Tech, eventually Polt's army will be strong enough to deal with that Lair Tech more than likely, especially considering Polt getting his armory, he's getting his upgrades. He could be about a minute ahead in the upgrades overall. That's assuming Jimrising starts instantly and Polt starts instantly. We actually see another starport on the way. Polt, at this point, pretty convinced that Jimrising is committing to these mutalisks. We'll probably see a committed push once he has another handful, actually ship weapons on the way as well for the Liberators. I like that choice. Just making sure these mutas are essentially a non-issue when it comes to the direct fight. Even another starport on the way. Does Polt know about this base? He does not. He can assume at this point. Polt is an incredibly smart player. He definitely assumes that there's a 4th base on the way, and we should see this push shaping up right about now as he consolidates and redirects his forces towards this location, bringing a couple tanks alongside. Jimrising doing a good job with the Mutalisk, finding the pickoffs. He started his 2-2 almost instantaneously as well. A lot of Banelings on the way. Only 2 tanks and a Widowmine here to deal with this, so it's all going to come down to the splits. Polt is actually on the creep. The tanks will slam these back. The mutas are going to be pretty good for picking off the reinforcements and picking off the tanks. If Polt steps too far forward on the creep with even upgrades, remember they both finished up the 1-1 right now, then he could be in a lot of trouble against the Swarm. Polt does have a higher supply, a higher army supply as well, but a lot of that is tied up at home. He's got a lot of Marines in production. He's got the tank and units and bunkers and all of this back at home. And these mutas are trying to keep that from getting across the map. But at this point, Polt has put together a large enough force. Are the mutas actually going to commit to taking this out? That's not going to be very cost-effective, to say the least. Oh, God. I don't know if I would recommend this in this scenario. 2-3 mutas for a handful of Marines and a medevac not even going down. We see a few Marines just looking to see, well, are the mutas going to come over here? If he sees the mutas on this side of the map, this might be a trigger for Polt to move his main army forward. He knows those mutas, that kind of kicker unit, I guess, that really exponentially increases the strength of his army. They're not here. So now Polt deciding to step a little bit further forward. He's holding this position. He's tying the units of Jimrising constantly to this 4th base. He's keeping the creep. Losing a few Marines here and there to keep that creep from spreading out is not a huge cost for Polt. He can reproduce those almost instantaneously. But now, we're hitting that timer. 2-2 is going to finish for Jimrising. He just finished up his hive, I do believe. Yeah, his hive is finished. And we should see an Ultralisk Cavern or a Greater Spire. I'm going to say Ultralisk Cavern because he's already upgrading his Flyer Carapace. And there you go. The Ultralisk Cavern has begun. A handful of Zerg. Whoa. 11 kills on that Widowmine. The counterattack gets completely shut down. And Polt hitting this left side as well. The Mutas can't engage this alone. That is just too many Marines now. The Hatch will not be targeted down. The Mutas are the choice. Looks like he will get it, just barely, with that Marauder. And Polt doing his classic style of hitting both angles at once. He'll scan forward. He's going to split the Marines back there. There are a couple Widowmines here with the tanks in the back right off the creep. The Muta's trying to find a way to get damage done, and they will almost wait for that Widowmine to recharge. Polt has established his 4th base. We've actually got some Corruptors on the way to deal with this Liberator count, which is getting a little bit too big to handle at the moment. We see Polt just holding it down right now. He's going to pick off a couple more Mutalisks. He's going to go for the 5th base over on this left-hand side while keeping his 4th secured. Ooh, Polt not paying attention for a split second, loses a lot of supply. He's busy microing over here. But what is there to kill these Liberators as he applies Freedom Zones all over this 4th base choke point? Sure, Lings and Banelings don't care about the Liberators too much, but even getting picked off one at a time, that's a lot of units when you got 5-6 Liberators sieged here. Polt is just looking to box out Jimrising. There's really no angle for him to get damage done. He needs these Ultras. But will he actually have enough Corruptors to take out this many +2 Liberators? The Liberators do a ton of damage. Best way to take out Ultralists if you're just transitioning into an anti-Ultra army. Even drones being taken down. We see him dropping under 70 now, which with Mules is going to put Jimrising at a pretty severe income deficit. Now, he's been able to establish a 5th base. This is a big deal. But if he loses his 4th base as the cost, it's not really a great shade here for Jimrising. Still a ton of Liberators sieged. A grand total of 14 Liberators on the map at the moment. And even half of them unsieged is almost enough to take out these Corruptors on their own. Polt once again moving an army over to the left-hand side. Ultralists and Mutas are prepared. It looks like Jimrising is going to give up his 4th base in favor of defending his 5th. And now, how are we going to see that Polt is just going for checkmate here, pretty much. Jimrising has his Ultra. He needs to find a fight where these Liberators are unsieged and his Corruptors are spread. He has a good army, but Polt, in the right place at the right time, he definitely wins the fight. On even footing, Polt wins this fight convincingly. And we see, Liberators being sieged up. A massive Widowmine hit. Gonna slam in. The Liberators are just tearing through the Ultras. 2 or 3 will go down as they have to go through the Freedom Zones here, but the Ultralists have made it through. The Corruptors are trying to split. The Liberators are going to take them all out, which means they're free to siege against these Ultralists. And while they shoot through the front lines, the back lines are holding completely strong. The Ultras on this side. A Liberator will siege up on the mineral line. Polt actually establishing a 5th base of his own. He's still got an army over here on the right side during all of this. He's keeping his cool under the fire of the Ultralists. Going for this planetary. Now this is an important target for Polt to defend. A lot of Marines are coming out to deal with these last couple Ultras, but the planetary will fall. Polt does have another base to make up for this, and he is moving in on Jimrisings at the same time. A lot of Widowmines back here should be enough to actually finish off most of these Ultras, unfortunately for Jimrising. Another Widowmine slamming the point home. Just not enough detection over here. The Adrenal Gland Zerglings will kill off a decent chunk of the SCVs. 68 to 40 workers. Polt's income has been shut down by a pretty decent margin. But now, the real story. 16 Liberators. 16 Liberators! Against just 6 Ultras and 6 Corruptors. Half of these Liberators could be sieged, and that's more than enough to box out the Ultralists. The Widowmine field will remain on this right-hand side to kind of lock out any basic harass or Zergling run-bys or anything like that. Alright, we see the, oh my god, the overlapping Venn diagrams of freedom, making it almost impossible for any units to move up. Will this bio stand its ground? It's going to be forced to retreat, but so many liberation zones, the Ultralists are just evaporating, and 2 Ultralists will live to tell the tale of the Gauntlet of Fire. A handful of Corruptors, just a few Liberators need to unsiege, and these Corruptors will melt. Polt takes home the game in a pretty convincing manner, showing how to deal with those Ultralists. Well played by Polt. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, give me feedback. Good luck, have fun, and happy StarCrafting.